This video is sponsored by mybookie.ag. What's up, guys? We have two cards this weekend. The boxing fights between KSI and Tommy Fury, as well as Logan Paul and Dillon Danis, which I think is a little bit more entertaining, but it might not happen because Logan Paul just got a cut that happened from the press conference between them two. It looked like Dillon Danis threw a microphone into his face that cut up his cheek. So we don't even know if that fight's even going to happen at this point. Who knew Dillon Danis had that in him? And then we have the UFC fights as well, headlined by Sodiq Yusuff and Edson Barboza. But let's go right into the boxing fights first. We're going to start with Logan Paul versus Dillon Danis. Now, there's not too much to say about these two boxing fights as it is lower level. 3 of the 4 fighters really don't have too much to talk about, but it should be a pretty interesting circus kind of fight. Logan Paul's only had 2 boxing fights in general. The Floyd Mayweather fight was an amateur contest that had no judges. Officially, no one won the fight, but we know who did. Floyd absolutely beat Logan Paul. The only fight that got judged that he had was his loss to KSI a long time ago. So what Logan Paul has over in Dillon Danis is he's bigger. I don't believe he's 200 pounds, right? I see around that he walks around at 200. There's no way. He's 6'2". He's extremely athletic. The guy looks blown up, an extreme athletic physique. I have to imagine he's like 220, right? He has to be around there. The guy's enormous, and they're going to be fighting at 200 pounds. So he has the size. I think he would have more power, even though he hasn't demonstrated it too much. The extent of his power was slapping and knocking out that one guy in one of his videos a long time ago. Don't ask how I know about that. The guy is extremely athletic. I mean, this is proven in his pro wrestling performances. I mean, the guy moves better than most professional wrestlers. It's insane. And Dillon Danis is a big gumpy, right? He's not the most coordinated. He's extremely good on the ground when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but in a boxing fight, what does this guy really have for Logan Paul? I mean, I saw him hit mitts and it does not look good at all. I know even like some of you guys, some of the viewers here look better than Dillon Danis on the pads. We saw a little bit of his striking in Bellator before he took the fight to the ground, and it didn't look good either. He was actually getting tagged a bit by a low-level competition. He does try to mimic a bit of Conor McGregor. He tries to line up the left hand. He moves a little bit back and forth, probing with his lead hand. But the thing is, he's much slower than Logan Paul. He probably punches weaker. And I think off sheer athleticism, Logan Paul should be able to win this fight. The only thing going for Dillon Danis is that he probably has better cardio. Maybe. But Logan Paul looks in excellent shape. And we have to see what happens with that cut, because if he's able to fight with the cut, that could be a target for Dillon Danis' left hand. Open that cut up again and try to win this by a doctor stoppage. That's a likely thing that can happen here. But ultimately, I am going to go with Logan Paul if he doesn't lose because of a cut. And I'm going to go with I would say like late round TKO. I think there's only so many punches Dillon Danis can take. And as you can see on the betting odds, Logan Paul's a massive favorite. A lot of people seem to be very confident in his athleticism. And then we go to the main event, KSI versus Tommy Fury. I like the way KSI tries to resemble his fighting style. It reminds me of Michael Venom Page. Very low hands, bouncing back and forth. Look in the lineup, that darting right hand from a distance explodes actually pretty quickly too. He's definitely a better boxer than both Logan and Dillon Danis. The guy hits pretty hard, can knock out if he hits you correctly, and he has a pretty mean elbow too. But the thing is, the low hands against someone like Tommy Fury who has an 80-inch reach. The guy's built like a tree. KSI is going to get punched in the face routinely. KSI is going to have to try to stick up from very far range and try to blitz in, man. That's the only way he could do anything here, or try to brawl with Tommy Fury, make the fight ugly. But even at that point, I just don't see Tommy Fury losing this fight at all. He's technically better in every aspect of boxing. He's way sharper, way more precise. The speed might be somewhat relative. The power may be somewhat relative. I think Tommy Fury hits harder though, considering how much better the form of his punches are. The only reason why KSI is hitting so hard, look at the way he throws his punches and look how he puts his body behind everything. Every punch he throws at you is to knock you out. Tommy Fury doesn't operate that way, right? Fury could do the same thing. If Fury was punching the same way KSI is, he'd be punching harder than KSI. But he likes to be a lot more technical and composed, stick to the boxing fundamentals, use that jab, line up the uppercuts, rip shots to the body, but this one he might want to go up to the head, considering that KSI's hands are low, and try to counter that blitz, right? Line up the jab, constantly disrupting him the whole fight, and forcing KSI to blitz in when he wants him to. That's the key thing about this fight for Tommy Fury. Make KSI explode on his terms, and he could do that off of his jab, and from there he should be able to counter KSI. So I ultimately do think Tommy Fury is going to win this fight. He's an even bigger favorite than Logan Paul is against Dillon Danis, and I think he's going to win this fight by a mid-round TKO. I don't think KSI is as good of a boxer as Jake Paul. And off of these two big odds here, you can go and bet on them with mybookie.ag, where they have the best lines in the business. Logan Paul over a 4-1 favorite. Tommy Fury over a 3-1 favorite. You can't really go wrong with these two. Now, the boxing fights are rather low level, so anything can happen. One punch can really make a difference here. I think that's more true with Dillon Danis versus Logan Paul, because Tommy Fury is supposed to be operating at a way higher skill level than the other three guys. So because of that, in that main event, there's less room that KSI can land some big punch and change it compared to the co-main event. That's why I think Tommy Fury is a pretty comfortable pick here. We also do have the UFC fights as well. You have Sodiq Yusuff, almost a 2-1 favorite. Vivian Araújo is actually an underdog. That's gonna be a pretty interesting fight to watch. Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez can go either way. I do agree with those odds being almost a pick'em. Michel Pereira is a big favorite over Andre Petroski. And I think it's because of Petroski's last performance, but this guy's active, man. This guy just fought a few weeks ago. And Michel Pereira is going up to the middleweight division. So I don't know if having him that big of a favorite is a good move, because Petroski can get him to the ground, try to gas him out before winning the fight. The thing about Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda is that when we saw them fight a couple weeks ago, and it ended in no contest because the ref stopped the fight too early, Edgar Chairez had him in that guillotine. We saw that Chairez was easily the better fighter out there. This one I'm actually kind of surprised about. I don't know if you guys agree with me on this. Cameron Simon's an underdog against Christian Rodriguez? Bro, Christian Rodriguez beat Raul Rosas Jr., and it wasn't even that easy for him. He lost that first round pretty badly. Cameron Simon is a very good prospect. Like, this guy's actually really good, man. He's an underdog? Do your due diligence on this fight, because this is definitely one to jump on. Terrence McKinney's over a 5-1 favorite. That is crazy. Chris Gutierrez is a lock on the card for me. I think you should absolutely win that fight. So there's a lot of really good odds all over the place, from the boxing fight to the UFC fights. You could bet on these live if you don't want to bet before it, just to use your analytical ability to see what's happening in the fight before you put a bet on it. That's honestly the best way I do it. It pays off dividends compared to just betting before the fight. So I actually really like live betting. And my book is going to give you the first deposit bonus. They're going to give you 50% of whatever you put in, all the way up to $1,000 on top of your first deposit. So if you put in, like, let's say $100, they give you another $50 to play with. To activate this offer, use the promo code WEASEL, that's WEASLE, to take advantage of my bookie sign-up offer. Remember to visit mybookie.ag today, where you can win big. Let's go right into the UFC fights. I try to be optimistic. There's some okay fights on here, like Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez is a banger, and Rodriguez versus Simon is an interesting one. And then the main event, of course, is pretty good. But let's be honest here, man. This is a warm-up card for UFC 294. Maybe Michel Pereira and Andre Petroski turns out to be a very good fight too, but it's not the best card in the world. But I would have to say that the prospect of the night is absolutely Cameron Simon. Cameron Simon is undefeated. He's very young, I think like 26 or something. He's extremely good on the ground. He's developing his striking very well. He trains with Dricus du Plessis, who's one of the best middleweights in the world, and Cameron Simon looks better every time we see him. I'm still kind of shocked he's the underdog. I don't think there's a fighter of the night. I think both guys in the main event are somewhat comparable. The stake of the night, the fighter that is in hot waters, is Ashley Yoder. Ashley Yoder is not doing well. She's on a losing streak going into this fight, and if she loses this one, she might get cut. The banger of the night and the fight of the night, in my opinion, are the main event. Sodiq Yusuff versus Edson Barboza should be a very good striking battle. Can be somewhat competitive. Barboza is older. He's not in his prime anymore, but the guy can still bang. Right, the guy's still technical, he's still extremely fast with his strikes. Considering that Sodiq is getting better, and he's much younger than Barboza, it should be a pretty competitive fight, and we're gonna go right into that one. Sodiq Yusuff versus Edson Barboza. This might resemble more of a puncher versus kicker kind of matchup. Sodiq Yusuff actually has pretty respectable boxing skills. He has to put the pressure on Barboza just like everybody does. The blueprint's out, right? Everybody knows how to beat Barboza. It's been done and replicated time and time again. Pressure him with your hands, threaten with takedowns, get him to overextend on his counter punches, because he will throw back, but he'll throw back a bit recklessly. And off of that, you're able to line up your own sharper punches, countering him. If you fight him in the center and give him space, that's where he's a problem, right? He's one of the best in the world in that specific kind of fight. Sodiq Yusuff has to be in his face, pressure him with the jabs, line up counter shots, and really be aggressive with him. I don't know if he has 5-round cardio to do that with Barboza, right? Barboza has a lot of experience. He's fought some of the best fighters in the world, and one time went into the 5th round against Kevin Lee before. But he's gone 3 rounds many times throughout his career. It seems like a lot of people are writing off Sodiq Yusuff sometimes as a rising contender in the featherweight division. Sometimes you get that feeling because he lost to Arnold Allen. Back when he lost to Arnold, it was before anybody thought Arnold Allen was going to be anything special. But now consider where Arnold Allen is at, that loss does not look that bad. That's his only loss in the UFC. So in the UFC, he's actually 6-1. And in my opinion, one of his best performances was back in 2018 when he fought Mike Davis on the Contender Series. It was such a great striking match between them two. Mike Davis is very good too, man. That guy is skilled, and Sodiq Yusuff beat him. But I think it would be also very intelligent for Sodiq Yusuff to chase takedowns sometimes. He does have a submission win in his last fight, very early in that first round against Don Shines. And I think off of his pressure boxing, utilizing takedown threats, I believe he should be able to beat Edson Barboza. Barboza's such a good crafty striker though, he can make a lot of things happen. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I am going to go with Sodiq Yusuff, and I think he's going to win by a decision. I can see Barboza winning 1 or 2 rounds, but I ultimately do think the fight should go to Yusuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give this a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, leave in the comments below what are your guys' predictions for this card and the boxing fights, and I'll see you guys in the next video.